At least one prominent associate of former President Trump's 2020 campaign is telling Republican lawmakers to give up their investigations into President Biden and his family. Lev Parnas, remember him, the Ukrainian businessman who worked with Rudy Giuliani to try and pressure Ukraine into investigating Biden in 2020, is calling the probe a, quote, wild goose chase. In a letter obtained by NBC News, Parnas warns that the investigation, quote, has been proven false many times over by a wide array of respected sources. In a statement, House Oversight Committee Chair Jim Comer slammed the media and the left, saying they were ignoring, quote, independent facts about the Bidens. A spokesperson for Giuliani did not respond to a request for comment. This comes as the House Oversight Committee is set to hold a hearing on the DOJ's Hunter Biden investigation. Two IRS whistleblowers will testify today. Back in May, they told lawmakers on the Ways and Means Committee that they think more charges should have been brought up against the president's son. The whistleblowers claimed the Department of Justice slow-walked its investigation and allowed the statute of limitations to run out. Hunter Biden, you may remember, reached a deal with prosecutors last month to plead guilty to misdemeanor tax crimes stemming from 2017 and 2018. He also faces a gun charge. Joining us now, Democratic members of the House Oversight Committee, Congressman Dan Goldman of New York and Congressman Jared Moskowitz of Florida. Good to have you both. Dan Goldman, I'll start with you. What can we expect in the hearing today? Who will we be hearing from, and what evidence will be presented?
Well, we have two IRS quote-unquote whistleblowers who will testify effectively that they wanted to charge more crimes against Hunter Biden than ultimately what the Trump-appointed U.S. attorney did. Now, Mika, you may know I was a federal prosecutor for 10 years. I never met an agent who didn't want to charge every suspect with every crime. But there's an important reason why prosecutors make those decisions, is that it is the prosecutor who has to prove the case at trial, who has to admit evidence, who has to understand the potential defenses, and who has to make the discretionary decision whether or not they can actually prove it. And so ultimately we have these whistleblowers who don't know all of the defenses, don't anticipate and cannot anticipate what it would look like in court, and they're arguing without any evidence at all, nothing direct, no statement, that this was somehow a political decision to ultimately charge Hunter Biden with what they did. And there's no basis for that. And in fact, what we will show today from their own testimony is that there is nothing that they cite that is not only that impugns the Trump-appointed U.S. attorney, but also they don't understand even the system. They don't understand the difference between a special counsel and a special attorney. And so when they claim that U.S. Attorney Weiss was denied special counsel status, they don't understand what they're saying. So I think the credibility of the allegations as to any kind of political slanting of this investigation will crumble on our questioning.
Congressman Moskowitz, do you agree? Is it not fair to raise some questions about Hunter Biden, especially in his tax dealings?
Well, thanks, Mika, for having us. Look, we're not here to defend Hunter Biden, right? Hunter Biden obviously is just, taking a plea deal on both the tax issue and on the gun issue. In addition to what Dan just said, I mean, remember, these are the folks, these Republicans in the Oversight Committee, who their last whistleblower turned out to be a fugitive from the United States, has been indicted for doing business with the Iranian regime, being a Chinese foreign agent, and selling illegal weapons to the Libyans. These are the same people that every time there was a whistleblower during the Trump administration, they demeaned that whistleblower. They said they were a liar. They've demeaned our institutions. And now they want to come forward and pretend like none of that ever happened. And so, listen, what I expect to hear in this hearing is a lot of partisan politics, because that's what this is about. This is about trying to hurt Joe Biden's numbers and trying to help Donald Trump. This is not about the truth. It's not about Hunter. It's simply about the polling. Every time they do a hearing, they test the polling and they see if the message is working. This entire thing in oversight this year has been a circus. It's been like whack-a-mole. You know, they're just trying to figure out what they can get to stick against Joe Biden, but Joe Biden's done nothing wrong.
So, Congressman Goldman, to pick up on your colleague's point there, I mean, there have been moments of candor where Republicans have suggested that, yes, they're doing this because they see that it negatively impacts President Biden's poll numbers. But I want to just take a half step back here and connect it to the other topic this morning, which, of course, is the looming federal indictment of Donald Trump, because we're hearing the same argument. We're hearing Republicans say, both there on the Hill, but also presidential candidates, that the blame lies with the Department of Justice, that it has been weaponized by this White House. Just speak to us, as someone who obviously has great experience in this matter, as to how dangerous that is, also, frankly, impacting Americans' faith in their institutions.
I think that last point, John, is the exact correct one, which is that the House Republicans and with Donald Trump's leadership have been trying to undermine the institutions that hold the powerful accountable. And they're doing that because they have no defense to the criminal activity of the president, and he is the leader of their party. And in reality, that's why they are trying to attack the Hunter Biden investigation, which was an exhaustive investigation done by a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney. And now we have a special counsel who's on the precipice of charging Donald Trump with another indictment. But the special counsel, by regulation, is completely independent from the Biden Justice Department, which is exactly the point of it. So there is actually no basis to say that this is somehow somehow political interference or a weaponization, as they say, of the Department of Justice. In fact, based on my experience, I'm shocked that Hunter Biden was even charged with these crimes. If you look at the history of civil and criminal enforcement of tax issues, and just look at Roger Stone's case, he effectively did the same thing as Hunter Biden, and he simply paid a fine. So the fact that he's even taking a plea deal, in my mind, demonstrates a two-tiered system of justice against Hunter Biden, not at all in favor of Donald Trump or the Republicans.
All right, Congressman Dan Goldman and Jared Moskowitz, thank you very much. Thanks to you both. We'll be watching the hearing today.